Why is it that usually one does not have a good relation or even specifically a conversation with intellectual people? Well, in many cases, intellectual people are kind of not my kind because they usually tend to be more like the fanatical version of an intellectual people, a person, rather than someone who simply gathers information. The intellect is a part of us which, well, is needed for our survival. It gathers information and makes use of it, obviously for survival, for getting better, for skills, because everything that you're going to be doing based on your mind is specifically for survival. Whether it is a job that you want, a new skill, a new project, finding a relationship, or whatever else you will seek, it is more or less for survival. Because let's not forget, survival is of multiple layers. There is the physical survival, which is obviously very important because without this physical body, one cannot experience life. Then there is obviously a societal survival where you have a certain persona that you want to preserve. You have things to show for others, you have things to aid them with, and obviously you have your own requests, needs, and necessities. Yes? Then obviously there is the survival of the self. A self is needed in order to handle certain situations. Typically, for almost every person that you meet in your life, you will develop a certain persona because that persona is more or less the bridge between you and the other person, or it is the language that you will develop mentally, psychologically, in terms of body postures and technically everything that you signal back to that person, whether it is going to be an aggressive maneuver, or it's going to be friendship, or it's going to be just a purely romantic, or maybe even just professional relation. Well, they each require a persona. Now, when it comes to intellectual people, many times, and probably you're already knowledgeable of such people, they end up being more like a nuisance rather than someone you can talk to. Yes? And in many cases, I've seen that they also end up being indistinguishable from idiots. Because while idiots have no foundation in their standpoints and simply support their own ideas as if that can only be the only truth ever to exist, intellectual people have all the ways to support their own things, but the problem is they support their own things so much that they become entrenched in it and forget the actual point of life, the actual point of this journey of life, and that is to keep yourself distant from the information that you gather. One does not need attachments toward things because you are not built to be attached to something. Attachments are good to a certain extent because obviously any bit of meaning that you accept, it's nothing else but an attachment, emotionally, mentally, and such. The problem is a lot of people associate information with some sort of power or some sort of boasting or showing off or showing people that they know something, or it can be on the other side, people, who are intellectuals but they don't get to talk much and suddenly they can't stop yapping. Yes, it's like to them, knowing, the more they know, the more they can talk to others. Well, to a certain extent, it is like their ticket away from their loneliness. Yes, they have this people pleasing in a way that if they keep talking, they might actually help others. And in many cases, they kind of end up pushing away others. Because nowadays, you have these new kinds of people who they want more or less genuinely to feel the truth, to learn the truth. But they end up stuck in this idea where everyone that gives them something, if they don't feel like an authority, these fuckers will never believe you. It doesn't matter how much you have experienced, it doesn't matter how much you have done, how much you have worked in your field, people are simply not gonna take you into account because you don't smell, you don't look, you don't seem to behave like some kind of authority. And obviously, if you don't have any titles, because intellectual people and most fakesters are obviously obsessed about titles and, well, basically meaning, well, you're not gonna be believed anyways because you don't have any title. Yes, these become so much slaves of this idea of consciousness named attachment These become so enthralled by seeking meaning, even where there is not, that they will probably waste their time inventing it instead of actually seeking it. At many times, intellectuals, especially the lower kinds, they usually end up believing the first thing that is put into their minds, and they will simply do what the intellect does best: accumulate information, create attachments and, well, classifications and whatever else, and then simply fight for that. Yes, that is why idiotic people can be equally dangerous as, well, many of these so called intellectual people. Because many people, when they speak of someone being an intellectual, they speak of someone as if they are of high regards, but that person is not. Simply being an intellectual means nothing to life and means nothing in general. You just have acquired a lot of information. How you make use of it is what actually proves your worth. Because out of a lot of information, you can make a simple junk. You can simply keep it for yourself and die with it, because that's also the nature of some people. They're always afraid that others will become better if they learn what they also know. And, well, on the other hand, there are some types of people who simply just acquire information to simply share with others. But there are people who simply acquire information just to make use of it in controlling ways. There are people who want to keep information for themselves and make sure that no one else does get to know it. So information ends up as a drug to most of these so-called intellectuals. And the more they accumulate, they have an impression that the bigger they are, the better they become. You'll see in a lot of societies, especially in sick societies, the more they become sick, the more convoluted they need to create their reality. Ultimately, it is nothing else than simply enforcing their own illusions in many of the situations. They end up simply embracing even more illusions, because when people give up on anything, when people are fully ignorant, they're not interested in seeking meaning. Why seek it when you can simply invent it? That's how you have a lot of woke people nowadays. It is way more comfortable to simply let that little bit of mind that one has to simply wander around and come with all sorts of ideas. Because the mind will create based on what you have fed it. But if you have fed it nonsense, it will obviously create nonsense. Much like when you ask an AI about certain questions, yeah, the quality of your answers also resides in the quality of your questions. If you ask a stupid question, don't be surprised that the AI will return you a stupid answer. In many situations, it works like that. And similarly, many of these intellectuals are just like that. And in many cases, these are nothing else but fuckers that are not interested in showing you that they know things. They're only interested in making you submit to them, in showing that they know stuff only so that they can start a conversation. Why? Because many of these also fetishize power. They want to start a conversation because they want others to listen to them, because in a way they are also vampiric. There is this type of so-called intellectuals. Maybe they do know a lot of things, but they are just a problem everywhere they go. They are the kind of people that brighten the room the moment they leave. Yes? And these people can just start quarrels, can just start talks, and all sorts of things, just so that everyone pays attention to them. And if someone wants to challenge their points of view, these ones will fumigate. They will simply become furious, but they will not necessarily show it. They will want to dominate the conversation in a perverted way. They will want to make you expose yourself. Yes, to give as many ideas as possible. They're not interested in knowing how much you know. They're interested in only you giving them more information that they can latch on and counter. They're only interested in dominating the conversation, in making you feel weak, by always explaining yourself. These people are not ever worthy of talking to. Just let them to their own and, well, simply be on your way, because the neurons that you preserve, that you keep healthy, well, they will thank you later when they will keep doing their job, instead of wasting them trying to convince fuckers who are not even interested in being convinced. Many people are not necessarily humans. They may look like a human, but their awareness level is just that of a robot. So even if they have a human body, it's like talking to something even worse than the AI that we have nowadays. So it's not worth wasting your time with many such individuals. Yes, they might know a lot of things, but you know, if those people know those things, be sure that they know those things from an external source. Nobody was ever born with the information in their mind. Yes, everything that you know, in a way, already exists in the cosmos. It is an information that you can access via your intellect by learning it from books and scripts, because that's the lowest form of understanding, the hardest one. And, well, the whole cosmos, has a history. That whole history lies deep within your DNA. Why do you think there's so much effort to break the DNA nowadays? Yes, everyone wants the full potential of humanity, and then they want to toy with humans and, make whatever they want. They want to make humans combined with any other kind of animal. They want to invent hermaphrodites now, right? The experiments that led to the creation of, gender bender people. And, this, well, that was successful on some people's side. Those people are playing gods. Obviously, they will want to create even more such experiments on humans. They're not showing you movies about experiments for nothing. The whole truth is deeply in your face, but depends on how people are willing, how much people are willing to open themselves to that. So, hopefully, this video raised a bit of awareness. You are appreciated, take care, enjoy life. This being said, Ferenc Board signing out.